This will be for the con exercise, midline of sinusoidal functions from graph. So let's start with a couple of definitions. Okay, the midline is the horizontal line that passes exactly in the middle between the graph's maximum and minimum points. I'll show you that in a moment. And the amplitude is the vertical distance between the midline and one of the extremum points. The extremum points are basically the minimum and maximum points. Okay, so in other words, the lowest point or the highest point. So I'll show you those on the graph. So this drawing in blue, this is basically our sine wave. Okay, and the midline is basically what it says it is, the line that passes right through the middle of that sine wave. Okay, so there will be a y-axis, and this line will be y equals some number. So you'll see that in a minute and on one of the problems, and that's for the midline. And as you can see, the amplitude is basically half the height of the sine wave. Okay, you see the sine wave, it travels from this height here all the way down to this height here. Okay, so the amplitude is basically like half the height of the sine wave. It's half the distance from the maximum to the minimum. Okay, first problem. Below is the graph of a trig function. It has a max point at 1.25.5 and an amplitude of 3.5. What is the midline equation of the function? Okay, there's more than one way to do this problem. I'll do it the simplest way first. So the maximum point, we're talking about the highest point, so we're looking at the y-coordinate of this point here. And we can see the y-coordinate is 5.5. And we can see the lowest point, the minimum, right here. This is 1, 0, negative 1. And if you go down a little further, we can see this point is between negative 1 and negative 2. All right, so the lowest point here, the minimum, is actually at negative 1.5. So basically, we want to find a line that's in between 5.5 and negative 1.5. So all we have to do is find the average. Okay, we have 5.5 for the max. And then we're going to add negative 1.5 for the minimum, and then just divide by 2, okay, because we're finding the average. So 5.5 minus 1.5 is just 4, and then divided by 2, that's just 2. So the midline is basically at y equals 2, and I'll show you a second way. Okay, it said the max point, the y-coordinate, is at 5.5. So we know this point is at 5.5. And the amplitude is 3.5. So if we went from the halfway from the max to the min, we'd travel a distance of 3.5. So basically, the amplitude is 3.5. We would travel in that direction 3.5 units. And we said the amplitude is halfway between the max and the min. So if we just subtracted 3.5 from the maximum, 5.5 minus 3.5, that would just equal 2. So same answer either way. All right, so y equals 2. Okay, again, we have our trig function. Minimum is this coordinate and maximum is this coordinate. Okay, and they wrote it right on the graph. what is the midline equation of the function. Okay, pretty easy. This right here, we're looking at the y coordinate. This is the maximum point. Okay, that's 6.75. That's our max. And the minimum point is right here. Again, y coordinate. That is 1.25. That's the min. Okay, and just finding the average. You add them and divide by 2. 6.75 plus 1.25 divided by 2. And of course, that is just 8 divided by 2, which equals 4. So at y equals 4, that line would be the midline, right in the middle of that sine wave. Okay, y equals 4. Okay, below is the trig function, max point -3.4 and amplitude of 4.6. What is the midline equation of the function? Okay, so now we don't have this minimum point, and we can't get it just by looking at the graph because it's going to be a decimal. All right, and they don't give us the minimum point in the write-up, so we can forget about that method. Okay, but the max point is the y coordinate right here, and that is at 4, so that's our maximum. And the amplitude is 4.6. That is halfway between the minimum and maximum. So if we travel downward 4.6 units, we would reach our midline. Okay, so we're starting at a maximum of 4. And we're going down 4.6 units because that's our amplitude. And that is just -0.6. So if you went to -0.6 right about here, you would be right in the middle of this function or sine wave. So that's the only method for this one. -0.6. All right, below we have our function. Max point is this coordinate, and minimum point is this coordinate. Okay, and it's written right on the graph. So it's very easy. We're looking at the y coordinate here. This is the max. And we're looking at the y coordinate here. This one is the minimum. Okay, so just find the average. We have a positive 7.7. And we're going to add a negative 6.7. And divide them by 2. And this is positive 1 divided by 2. So y equals 1/2 or 0.5. So right in the box, 1/2 for 1/2.